This cargo e-bike is the KBO Ranger, and with a name like that, we expected it to be able to cover a ton of miles before needing a recharge. So did it live up to our expectations? Let's take a ride and find out. Hey everyone, I'm John with Electric Bike Report. One quick reminder to please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications if you're shopping for an e-bike. We release new reviews all the time, so we'd love to help you find the best fit for you. A few big things really stood out to us during our testing of the KBO Ranger. As a cargo e-bike, a big payload capacity and a powerful motor are some of the most important features. This bike can carry a total of 400 pounds, including the rider, and it has a 750 watt rear hub motor to move that much weight effectively. We'll talk about the bike's speed and hill climbing ability shortly, but to give you a tease, it did a really solid job. Another standout element of the bike is its removable 48 volt, 840 watt hour battery. We'll also take a look at the Ranger's performance in our range test section soon, but that kind of battery capacity is on the high end when compared to the other cargo bikes we've tested. That gives it a really good shot of being able to give riders a lot of mileage before needing to be recharged. One final thing that was pretty unique about the Ranger is that it didn't really feel or handle like a cargo bike. When compared to similar models from other brands, its wheelbase is relatively short at 47 inches, so that combined with the 20-inch by 3-inch CST Big Boat tires made the bike feel pretty nimble and generally maneuverable. In my experience, cargo bikes can feel a little awkward to ride without any additional passengers or gear, but the Ranger behaved a lot more like a shorter, non-cargo specific e-bike, so it generally felt a bit more fun to ride. Before we get to all of our test data, let's run through the remaining specs and components, starting off with the drivetrain. The Ranger has a 7-speed Shimano Altus drivetrain with a 46-tooth chainring and a cassette with cogs ranging from 14 up to 28 teeth. The brakes are the Aries mechanical disc system from Tektro with 180mm rotors. There's a motorcycle-style center stand to keep the bike balanced when you're loading it up. There's a comfortable KBO branded saddle that has quite a bit of squish. There are front and rear fenders, and there's a dual LED headlight, as well as a tail light that also functions as a flashing brake light when you squeeze the brake levers. The cockpit is clean and simple with a central black and white display. There's a small 3-button control panel on the left handlebar. There's a half-twist throttle on the right next to the thumb shifter, and there are also ergonomic faux leather grips on 710mm handlebars. Also, it's a small detail, but I have to say that I really like that the brakes levers have a trigger-operated bell built in. That really came in handy when the bike paths were really busy. We were also happy to note that the bamboo top board for the cargo rack and the running boards on the sides were included, and then KBO also offers some additional accessories to outfit the bike further. These include things like a fence attachment for the rack to give kiddos something to hold on to, and also front and rear cargo baskets to hold all your gear. The structural supports for the rack make it a little under 20 inches long, and it's about 7.5 inches wide. But then the last thing here, the Ranger is available in 2 color options. This one's just called orange, but there's also another one called cool gray that's sort of a metallic bluish green. So with all that out of the way, let's get into our test results. The Ranger ships as a Class 2 e-bike that can reach 20 miles per hour with throttle or pedal assist, and we brought it up to that speed when testing its brakes. We measured the distance it took to stop after applying the brakes and did the same thing 2 more times so we could calculate an average. The Ranger's average stopping distance then was 21 feet 4 inches, which is a little slow for a cargo bike, but pretty good in the grand scheme. This bike weighs about 78 pounds, which is actually fairly light for a cargo bike, so we attribute the longer stopping distance to the fact that the brakes are mechanical instead of hydraulic. This is one of the few cargo e-bikes we've tested that used a mechanical system, and while it does have a little less overall stopping power than a hydraulic system would, we were glad to see Tektro Aries brakes, as we've always measured good performance from them in this test. I thought the brakes performed pretty well during my rides outside of this test, although with some added weight, they definitely took longer to bring the bike to a stop. They'll also have to work a lot harder if you unlock the bike to its Class 3 speeds of up to 28 miles per hour. With that in mind, you may want to consider upgrading to a hydraulic system if you're maxing out the load regularly, or if you just want to ride fast, but if you're mostly traveling light, then you should be totally fine. For our speed test, let's go out together and see what happened when I rode the Ranger along our local bike paths. I recorded my top speeds in each pedal assist setting and also tested the throttle to see how quickly it could reach 20 miles per hour. All right, we are here on the KBO Ranger for a speed test, and I'm keeping things pretty casual here with no help from the motor, going kind of right around 9 miles per hour, maybe up towards 9.5 at times. But honestly, that's pretty comfortable, pretty easy on this bike. Let's go up to PAS 1 and see what kind of a difference that makes. So of course that motor kicked on right away. Lets me shift up to 5th gear from 3rd where I was at. And looks like we're going kind of right around 10.5 miles per hour. All right, let's go up to PAS 2. Oh, there we go. And I'll shift up to 7th gear. So I am already in the top gear here. We are going kind of between 13 and 13.5 miles per hour by the bike's display. Let's go up to PAS 3. Having a little bit of trouble with these gloves, sorry. Okay, so I'm starting to ghost pedal here, or at least on the verge of it. So we're going right under 16 miles per hour. Well, okay, now right over. All right, let's go up to PAS 4. So I'd say that, you know, the motor definitely feels powerful. It's not super punchy, which is good. Going around 18 miles per hour in PAS 4 here. And then PAS 5, kick it up for the max speed. All right, so we got a little bit over 20 miles per hour there temporarily, but we're kind of hovering right around 19.9 for a cruising speed here. So, okay, we will call that our speed test on the KBO Ranger. See you back at the studio. All right, we are here on the KBO Ranger once again to do a throttle acceleration test from 0 to 20. We'll use the bike's display for that. So let's go in 3, 2, 1, start. All right. Nice steady build. Yeah, feels good. And 20. So first things first, I only tested the bike here in its Class 2 mode, which is how the bike shipped to us. There are a couple of reasons for that, which we'll get into more later on, but the bottom line is just safety. We feel that 20 miles per hour is plenty for a cargo bike, especially if you're bringing the kids along with you. But with a cadence sensor, the Ranger has pre-programmed speed limits in each of its 5 assist settings, and I kept my pedaling pretty relaxed so we could get a clear idea of what those were. Starting off with only my own pedal power, I recorded 9.5 miles per hour, though honestly that was pretty easy and I could have easily gone faster. But I wanted to see how much of a difference the lowest assist setting, which is PAS 1, made, and that turned out to be about 1 mile per hour up to 10.7. Moving up from there, the increases in power were really even. I hit 13.6 miles per hour in PAS 2, 16.1 in PAS 3, 18.3 in PAS 4, and 19.9 miles per hour in PAS 5. Those limits show a really well-balanced distribution that makes it really easy to find the right amount of power for the job, and the jumps between settings felt spot on. This bike felt a bit punchier when moving up through the pedal assist settings than it did when I was using just the throttle, but overall the bike seemed to have really steady output, and I think it did a great job in this test. And here we are with our range test, where we can really figure out if the Ranger lived up to its name. We actually performed 2 different tests where we rode the bike until the battery gave out, first in the highest assist setting and again in the lowest. The minimum and maximum range we measured with this method was 32.9 miles to 64.2 miles. KBO advertises 60 plus miles, which was spot on with our results. And compared to similar cargo bikes we've tested, the Ranger did a great job. In PAS 5, it was sort of middle of the road, suggesting that the motor burned through the battery fairly fast, but in PAS 1, it took the lead as the longest running cargo bike we've tested with a 750 watt motor and a single battery. When it comes down to it, I think this is just a matter of battery capacity. Most of those other bikes have had smaller batteries, around 692 watt hours, so the 840 watt monster here just gave the Ranger a big advantage. The motor actually proved to be a bit more efficient than we expected with its high power test as well, which is most easily shown by how long the test took. We expected our test to last about an hour and 10 minutes based on the motor and battery specs, but we hit an hour and 50 minutes, which is a 64% increase. The fact that our PAS 1 test took 6 hours and 41 minutes though, that's pretty impressive, and it goes to show that if you don't mind riding a little slower, you'll be able to cover some serious ground. If you're carrying a lot of weight, you'll probably get a little less distance than we did, but you'll still probably do better than a lot of other cargo bikes out there. Our hill test is a little different this time around. I actually performed the test instead of Justin, who was out of town at the time. But let's go for another ride and see how the bike did with its throttle and pedal assist system at Hellhole Trail. All right, we are here on the KBO Ranger, which is an electric cargo bike. I am filling in for Justin this time. He's out of town for a couple days, so I'm a little bit heavier than Justin, but with the 750 watt motor on this bike, I don't expect to see a whole lot of difference in results. Slowing down a little bit here, but you know, as a cargo bike, definitely would expect it to have the oomph to get up Hellhole here. We'll see how well it does, down to about 8 miles per hour. And you know, the motor does have a bit of a whine to it, a little bit on the lower end. Not too loud though. I'll let you listen to it here through this next section. Slowing down again, a little bit. Right about the same, right about 8 miles per hour. And then here we are, definitely gonna make it at this point. Now I don't have any cargo on the back, and that may change things a little bit as well, but you know, again, just with throttle, doing pretty good here, and we will compare these results to those of the other cargo e-bikes we've tested. I'll see you back here again shortly for the pedal test. All right, so we are back here on the KBO Ranger for the pedal test up this hill. And let's see, I need to shift down to 5th gear, I think is gonna be the best for this challenge. About 12.5 miles per hour up that first steep section. Not doing too bad. I am definitely soft pedaling though, just to sort of see what kind of difference the motor actually makes as opposed to my own effort. And you know, still about the same sound from the motor here. I'm going to shift up to 6th. I'll let you listen to that for this next section. Got down to about 3rd gear there, but
you know, gotta be honest, not a bad hill climber here. Did a good job, no trouble whatsoever, and I would expect that with some weight on the back that you'd also be able to do this just fine. So we will bounce back to the studio and take a look at the results.
So again, I wouldn't expect a ton of difference between my results and what Justin's would have been, but there was likely some difference since I've got about 25 pounds on him. With the throttle, I rode to the top of the path in 1 minute and 35 seconds and kept an average speed of 11.4 miles per hour. When I pedaled up the hill, it took me 1 minute and 21 seconds, and there I had an average of 13.4 miles per hour. This is a bit slower than the other cargo bikes we've tested, but at the end of the day, we don't think speed should be a huge factor, more just that the bike could do the job. And the Ranger did. I took it to another spot near our office that's become kind of a secondary test location. It's not quite as crazy as Hellhole, but it's not something you'd want to climb without a motor. I brought our mechanic, Brendan, along, and he weighs about $150, so together that made the bike's total payload around 350 pounds. We rode up on the throttle, which is where the motor has the hardest time, and while it took a little longer to get to the top, the Ranger just kept going and going. Bottom line, this bike can handle some pretty tough hills even with a heavy load, and we definitely give it 2 thumbs up. I want to take you back out with me one last time to go over the main elements of the Ranger's ride quality. I'll meet you back here in a few minutes so we can wrap things up.
All right, we are back here on the KBO Ranger to give you a sense of what it's like to ride. This is, of course, KBO's electric cargo bike and has a pretty upright riding position, although I think that's going to vary a little bit depending on rider height. There's just a single frame size here, but KBO says that it should fit riders from 4'11" up to 6'3". I'm 5'11", and I have a little bit of a forward lean here just because of the bike's limitations. It does have a standard style stem, so without adding spacers or swapping that out, you know, you're going to be fairly limited in your handlebar height and your reach distance, although with these sort of low-rise handlebars, you do have a little bit of adjustment if you loosen up the stem and rotate that, but most of the adjustability here is going to be in the seat post height. There is a rigid fork here, so no suspension, but that comes with some benefits on cargo bikes. It's a little better climbing efficiency when you come to hills, and then just a little bit better handling when you're carrying weight on the back. And then, let's see, we have 20" by 3" CST tires. So kind of a nice blend of stability and maneuverability without adding a whole lot of weight there. And you do get a little bit of cushion from those. You could air them down a little bit to give you a bit more squish, but I would say, you know, be careful of that if you're carrying a lot of weight. And then this bike uses a 750 watt rear hub motor. I will demonstrate the cadence sensor's responsiveness here. So I'm in PAS 5, I'm in 7th gear, kind of coasting here to let the motor shut off, and then I'm gonna turn the cranks now. So that was about a 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn of the cranks for that to engage, and then you can see it's picking up pretty good here. So, all right, let's bounce back to the studio and talk a little bit more.
So overall, the Ranger was a pretty comfortable bike to ride. It accommodates a wide height range of riders, and while I didn't have the best fit at 5'11", our testers in the 5'5" range were very happy. For those around my height or above, the standard style stem kept the handlebars feeling fairly low, but the mechanic at your local bike shop can help you add spacers or swap out the stem for something different if you find yourself in my shoes. I mentioned the bike's handling at the beginning of the review, and while in general it was very good, there was one area that I think could use some work on future iterations of the bike. I felt the frame flex quite a bit at times, especially when cornering, and with added weight, that turned into some instability when moving at slower speeds. Compared to other bikes out there, the Ranger has a bit less structural support in its frame, and I'd recommend that KBO beef things up a bit to make the frame stiffer. One other area that could use some tuning up was the motor's engagement when riding around 20 miles per hour. Once it got up to speed, the motor did this sort of on-off thing that made the ride feel a bit jerky. It was just doing what it needed to do to keep the bike right at that limit, but I think a little wiggle room would be beneficial to help smooth out the ride. Those are some fairly big points of critique, but I don't want to lose sight of the fact that this bike generally functions pretty well. Things that jump out to me might be less of an issue for you, and that's kind of a natural side effect of riding a bunch of different bikes all the time. Bottom line, there's some room for improvement here, but for the most part, the Ranger is a cool bike with decent ride quality. Looking back at everything we talked about, the Ranger did a solid job in our testing. It's not a perfect bike, but I want to focus mainly on overall performance. Our speed test showed a pretty ideal distribution of speed and power throughout the 5-pedal assist settings. Our range test showed that the Ranger can stay on the road or bike path for a seriously impressive number of miles that also matched KBO's claims. Our hill test showed that the bike can handle steep hills even when carrying 2 grown adults. And our brake test showed that KBO spec'd an affordable but still quite functional system. We hope that the brand addresses the frame flex and ride feel issues we discussed, but when looking at the big picture, including the Ranger's list price of $17.99, it offers solid performance for an entry-level cargo bike. If you live quite a ways from the market or the park where you take the kids, and you're looking for a healthier mode of transport without breaking the bank, the KBO Ranger might be the bike for you. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you found this review helpful and informative. If you want more detail about our tests, we'll leave a link to our written review down in the video description. And if you decide you want to make a purchase, please use our other link to KBO's website, which helps support our channel at no additional cost to you. Please also be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. You can also drop us a line in the comments section. But that's all for today. Again, I am John with Electric Bike Report, and this is the KBO Ranger.